What is it?
Valorant.
Valorant.
Yeah,
Wait,
I play Valorant.
What?
2K.
Minecraft, okay.
Roblox.
Roblox.
Yeah, we have a lot of livelihood
Getting
here.
into Overwatch. No.
GTA. Stop.
Sorry.
GTA, okay.
I play Roblox.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Like the old version?
Like new one.
Oh, there's a new one. Okay, cool.
Geometry Dash.
I was just happy. Cool. Yeah. What else?
Stumble Guys.
Okay. You have a nice list. I mean, that's impressive. So question. So how much time do you spend on all these apps? How about per day? Like, give me a number if you're willing to share.
4 hours.
4 hours.
I give like 8, bro. Yeah.
8 hours?
8 hours?
Bro, each game is like an hour long.
So some phones actually track a lot of your time and usage, so you can actually even check out yourself how much time you're spending on your phone in terms of all these apps. And we're not even talking about TV and wasting time on TV yet. But so the follow-up question: how many of you guys enjoy what you guys are doing when you're done? So did you have time? Did you have fun while you were doing it?
Yes.
Do you feel bad after it or not really?
Not really.
I feel bad if I feel it.
Okay.
I feel bad.
So you feel so some people feel bad because of the time, not necessarily the entertainment itself. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'll share some personal information in terms of how I kind of navigated that, because I was also in a similar phase. Actually, quick question just here. How many people here are in college? And how many people here are in high school? Okay, good. Anyone else? Middle school? And working. Professional. Cool. Nice. Okay, so college and high school. So yeah. So I already gave some of my my history with stuff, but I'll kind of also go through both like a mini biography in this regard, as well as what I have done differently in hindsight. Because again, the purpose here is to it's like real talk and kind of trying to fix some of the issues. If they are issues, remember, you have to figure out what is the good, what is the bad, and navigate. Okay, so in high school, I actually didn't play much video games because my parents didn't allow it. That was one. The other is that the internet really I didn't have access to it until 11th grade, so very different times. It's not that long ago, but I didn't have the internet, so there's less social media and things like that. But then when I went to college, basically, yeah, I started gaming a lot more than I expected. Grades suffered and all that good stuff that followed with it. But I didn't mind it because it was a stress reliever. I was good at it, and so I was doing better at it than grades for sure. And all of these like dopamine effects, where basically it was a feedback loop where I was enjoying it, I was doing well in it, and basically I want to keep doing it and enjoying it. Whereas grades, you have to put effort in, and you have to work, and you have to basically work hard as opposed to have fun. And again, different ways of having fun, whether it's social media or it's gaming. But in my case, it was more gaming. The reality check set in really when I saw my grades. So there were good like benchmarks around, and there are structures in place to help you. And so I guess in hindsight, one of the benefits of, well, I'm not going to say benefits of gaming, but I guess one of the things that was okay, I guess, in gaming, the fact in and of itself that it's not wrong. There was social activity, you get to play with friends and all that stuff, but it really was the time. And to me, the time is the one thing where you can't get back, because once your life is moving in one direction. And once you recognize that, it also puts things in perspective. That 1 second from 2010 is equal to the second in 2020, and how did you spend it? Did that help you improve in your life? Did you improve for your akhirah, the hereafter, and things like that? And so grades was the wake-up call, but it was also kind of like, okay, if I'm gonna game, again, balancing this good versus bad, let me at least limit that number of hours. And then the way I went about it was to get external help. So some of the things I did I reached out to my cousin. We're really good friends, and we gamed a lot together. And I asked him, I gave him my username, and I told him, go change the password and give it to me only once the summer hits. I don't think I have self-control to not game on my own, and so can you just do that for me? And that was a very big influence. That was a very big help. So basically, I just didn't have access. I basically eliminated access to the game. So even if I wanted to, I had to find something else to do. And he was good enough and close enough of a friend that he wouldn't basically give me the password. So again, I could still have fooled it if I wanted to, because I could just forget password and reset password on my end. But I didn't do that. So some self-control on my end, but it really helped just that the password wasn't someone else's control. So number one, get external help if possible, and be creative about it. Find a friend, parents, or someone you trust. Brainstorm, find a way that you can kind of eliminate it. And the theory behind why that works is actually very similar to going on a diet or anything you want to build a habit of. If you see food in the fridge, you're going to eat food in the fridge. If you don't see food in the fridge, you're not going to eat because there's nothing in the fridge. For example, so the idea is whatever you're trying to reduce, if you're spending too much time on a specific app, delete the app, get rid of it. It's very easy. Again, there's some self-control because you could re-download it, but try to put mechanisms to remove it as opposed to saying, when I open my phone, I'm not going to click on that button, or so on and so forth. And it's easier said than done, but again, no one said it was easy. There's a lot of good things that are available these days. So lots of different phone companies or game companies, you could set up your own parental filter in terms of times or things like that. So you could set, like, I'm only going to go on this social media for this amount of time, only going to play for that amount of time, and so on and so forth. Deciding that time again, how much good is good, how much bad is too much. I mean, every bad is bad, but you want to eliminate it eventually. But going through that balance is important, and getting external help is good. So that's number one. So that's the first thing I did. And it worked great, because then I would do well in school. It was then summer. I get to have fun. And again, I was going to play with my cousin anyway. And so he would give me the password, and we would enjoy time, and it was great. So that's the first thing that I would suggest. So finding a friend and like concocting a good plan together and holding each other accountable. And I think that's a very, very important number two, so college went well, went into grad school at University of Illinois, got a really good friend, and what we ended up doing in our free time was video games, because again, it's a common habit. So that was a bit harder to control because we were roommates, not like less harder to control when the setting is kind of conducive to video games. And again, both of us together, our grades suffered, and we were spending way too much time video games. And then I got married, and that actually helped set priorities straight. But one of the things that I actually learned during this time is that one of the most important things to also do is not just find a friend to reduce a bad habit, but also replacing a bad habit with a good one. So it's very hard for a human to just drop something cold turkey. So if you're if you're playing video games for 4 to 6 hours, where do those 4 to 6 hours go if you suddenly stop? Like, you have a lot of free time on your hand. How are you spending it? And if you're not intentional up front about how you're spending that time, then it's going to derail. You're not going to be able to follow through with what you wanted to do. So during this time, with my friend, we actually found, before I got married and then when I got married again with my wife, found a lot of activities to replace video games. So we did some very interesting things. So he was an action junkie, so we ended up learning how to ride a motorcycle and getting a motorcycle license, for example. Questionable whether that's the better use of the time. But it was fun. It was a physical activity. Less screen time for sure. Definitely don't drink and drive or play video games and drive. And we had a great time. And we then started doing other physical activities together. We started playing soccer together. That's a great, fun activity, sports in general. And we started filling up our time such that slowly video games reduced. And then it actually made it pretty easy for us to just delete the games we were playing either on our PCs or on the console or stuff like that. Because we weren't playing it anymore, and it was taking up space. And so actually finding things to replace what you were doing with other things and that are enjoyable, that are, again, halal jaiz and they're fun things to do, alternatives, that's a good way to control your time on your digital front. So going back to the beginning of the talk, I guess, if you're not scared by what they will do with your data and you purely just want to control your actions, number one, find a friend, kind of figure out how to limit the time together. Number two, find something that you could replace it. And when you replace it, hopefully it'll just kind of eat up, like the new habit will eat up the old habit, and you will improve. And number three, this one's fun. If you can't get rid of it, at least use it for good. So, so towards the end of my graduate school, at this point I was married already. I wasn't playing video games as much, but spending more time on YouTube or social media and whatever, infinite scrolling and all that stuff. And I noticed that it wasn't useful. I was wasting my time. I should be doing a lot of other stuff. And then I figured if I'm gonna be like putting myself to sleep, just scrolling forever, that's not the right way to put myself to sleep. So your phone can be used for a lot of good things. You have the digital Quran on your phone, so you can start reading Quran, you can start listening to Quran. YouTube itself has a lot of good things, so I started picking up documentaries and learning about so many random things. So instead of playing Call of Duty and, I don't know, like having tanks shoot each other, I started watching like famous tank battles of history, and it's very entertaining. Like you learn about in the past 100 years some of these tank battles, and it's history. It's actually like useful information. And I'm ended up loving historical things, watching other things, started learning about random stuff like, who's Albert Einstein? What did he do? Like famous people. What's quantum computing? And just started learning really random things, going down a good rabbit hole of learning as opposed to a infinite rabbit hole. And then there's other things too, like your hobbies. Like I wanted to start cooking, so I started looking up cooking channels and things like that. All these things are very good uses. And again, it goes back to the first thing I mentioned, balancing the good and the bad. So YouTube itself isn't bad in and of itself. Social media isn't bad in and of itself, but you could use it for good. You could use it for bad. You could use it for neutral, but it can be a waste of time. So be intentional. Find how to spend your time in such a way that you're benefiting. So now I feel way less guilty about watching YouTube because I know my YouTube time, whatever it is, I'm going to be learning something new. And I enjoy that. I could then go and teach someone that thing that I learned. We could watch that YouTube video together. And in between those random historical things, if there's a short video, a comedy or whatever, might watch some of that too. But it's still, in the grand scheme of things, like definitely tipped in the side of using it for good. So that's kind of my historical journey. And not that long. I'm not that old. Over the past couple of years in terms of social media, gaming, and trying to navigate that. So right now, I guess as a, let me think. So, this is a fun one. It doesn't apply to everyone, but definitely applied to me. And this is kind of like, if you can't beat them, join them. I ended up going into computer science because I love technology so much. So, rather than trying to limit my screen time either on my phone or in a library back before, I'm old, like internet and things like that, I now work, like my day job is in front of a screen, and I actually enjoy it. That's my hobby, is to work and program and use a computer and things like that. So most of my day is spent in front of a screen, and then in the evenings, I really don't have I've already had a screen appetite that's more or less filled during the day. Few more hours is not kind of what I want or need. And so kind of changed a passion or a hobby or things that I didn't do into a career. And I think this is a really good one. So again, finding a hobby, doing what you like, all of that. I mean, if you could use technology in a way that you like it, make a livelihood out of it, why not? That's kind of like the best of both worlds, win-win situation. So that's kind of my journey through this and kind of things that I took. So I was going to summarize basically by where I am today, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us all better and improve, and we're all still working on it. So right now I game much less than I used to before. I think maybe half an hour a week or so, and even when I do that, it's on a Nintendo Switch with my son. And so it's more of a bonding moment more so than a, Call of Duty moment. Whatever moments, I guess. So it's actually a nice experience to just sit with your son or your family and kind of play and have that. And also to make sure he doesn't go down that rabbit hole that I did, trying to associate video games as a reward for something good. And so he doesn't ask to play video games now until he goes and reads Quran a bit first. So now he only associates the video game with like, oh, if I read some Quran, will I get to play some Switch with you? And I'm like, yes, that's fair. So we go do some Quran and then we'll go do the video game. So associating it something as a reward, having a family time around it, and it's very different than 10 years ago when I was just gaming for a couple of hours instead of studying and doing my work. So there's that. Phone time, I actually checked it before I came in today. I average about 3 hours on my phone in screen time. Most of it is in Slack, so I was surprised when I heard Slack, which means it's mostly work, so it's actually not other things. So I also browse like news articles, like read New York Times and things like that. I do play a little on my phone too, but most of the games are now educational games. At least in my sense, I term them educational, so Wordle or crossword puzzles and things like that. Definitely not what I used to do 10 years ago. And I still joke about it because it's not. I'm like, this is not the kind of thing Abd Rahman would do, but now I'm doing it because again, being intentional and trying to reduce it and work over time. What other statistics on my end? Feel free to ask me guys if there's something else. I don't have any social media on my phone except Twitter, and I'm planning on eliminating that soon, mostly because of the recent takeover, and I feel like it's not going in the right direction, but that's another reason. My TV time, in terms of things like Netflix or Disney and things like that, maybe a few hours a week, but it's mostly documentaries. I really enjoy documentaries and learning new things, so I think it's a good way to spend like my downtime is learning something new. So if I'm eating lunch at my desk or something like that, I just pull up a documentary and watch it, learn something new, have a nice hour break, and then get back to what I'm doing. So that's about me. Hopefully address some of the points in the discussion and the topic. And other than that, I think we could have open Q&A, and you guys can ask me anything, and I'll do my best to answer them, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Quick round of applause for Dr. Ibrahim. Jazakallah khair for that wonderful discussion. I actually do have a starter question for you. So you mentioned that throughout your life you kind of sort of detoxed a little bit from social media. You were playing a lot of games. You had Instagram. You had Facebook. So how was the transition, and how does it feel now? Because I know a lot of us, we have Instagram, we have all this, and I've personally never been on a detox. I'm sure most of us have not been on a detox. But how does it feel? I kind of want to see the inside look.
That's a very good question. So I'll give two answers to that. I'll say how it feels now and how it felt then. Now it feels great. I feel like my time is much more productive. I feel like I have way more hours in the day. I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. So now it's like the outcome on the other end is great. On some drawbacks, I do feel a little disconnected in terms of I don't know what the most up-to-date social media is and things like that, of course. But I honestly really don't care in terms of the platform or the details. Because again, you could just watch a YouTube video about how TikTok works. So it sounds crazy, but yeah, I don't have TikTok. So, but it's you're not immune to it, so it's good to still be aware, and you don't isolate yourself and live in a bubble. So it's still good to acknowledge what's around you. In terms of how I felt at the time, I don't think you could do something cold turkey. So the transitions were slow and steady, but it really is a mindset. So you could really want to have to leave an app. So pressing the buttons, the physical motions to delete an app or to delete an account, it won't take you more than a minute. But like the willpower, kind of that thought of dragging you to kind of reinstall it, all that stuff, that's very hard. And so trying to build that willpower to convince yourself why you don't want it, I think that's the first step. And that's kind of why I wanted to start off in the beginning with various reasons why you might want to consider. And many people have different reasons. So for me, again, personally, it came more from a security, privacy perspective. Like I work in technology, I understand how technology works. I don't trust these big players. And so that was, to me, enough to kind of help push me over the edge in terms of, yeah, I really don't want to keep Facebook or upload my photos and stuff and have everyone see them, things like that. And then these companies come and have like privacy features or security settings. But again, knowing that I work in security, or like I have like background security and privacy and stuff, I'm like, yeah, but do they really work? There's still breaches that happen, things like that. So to me, that's kind of my take on why I wouldn't want them. But to some other people, it's okay, they don't mind sharing, and they need another trigger or something. And I encourage you to find what that is to you in terms of what's the real reason you're using it, and what would be the real reason to convince you not to use it, and is that something that you're worth giving up, and how do you manage it? So again, managing is the hard part, but again, you could reduce it over time until it becomes relatively easy to press the button. So yeah, so that's.
Do we have any questions? All right. You ever feel detached from society? People usually update their lives through social media and not text. For example, someone got married and you don't know for a while because they only post about it and not really.
Great question. Personally, this is going to come off as, I don't know how this is going to come off. But in a way, it's like I don't care. Again, it sounds wrong, but it's like it doesn't hurt me. Like if someone is getting married, I'm very happy for them. The fact that I didn't find out because I'm not on the social media, I'm totally happy with my decision not to be on social media. And so if I find out later and I found out later because I'm not on social media, I'm like, oh, it's totally fine. I'm just upset I wasn't able to give this person a gift in time or something like that. But it's an easy excuse to call up and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not on social media. Here's the delayed gift, and I have an excuse to talk to the person. Again, make what's it called, lemonade out of lemons, in that quote. So yeah, so personally, I don't mind. Yes, I definitely miss out on various social events. But the ones that I care about, I probably don't miss out on as much. And again, I mentioned earlier that I do take phone calls and make phone calls. What a phone is supposed to be used for. So that does help to a certain extent. So the people that I do want to keep up to date with, my family, my parents, and everything, I give them a phone call, and that connection stays. Older friends that I had in undergrad and college, whenever I know I'm visiting a specific city or they're in town or something, I try to give them a phone call or text them and try to meet up and things like that. So I think it's less of an information overload and more a very I'm kind of choosing my path and being very intentional about what I'm being fed and what I care about, where I'm spending my time, and doing it very intentionally. So it's almost, again, it might seem archaic, it might seem like the old way that people do things, but to me it makes me much more happier in terms of not getting like bombarded with information left and right. So to me, it's honestly a perk rather than a con. But I can see how it could be hard, and that again goes to why people might have social media to stay connected, and if it is their way of staying connected, just a matter of managing how much time they're spending on it versus infinite scrolling. So, yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
Sorry, I'll just say that. Is there a way to safely navigate social media without risking your security, or is that always hand in hand?
Ooh, yeah. So I'll just repeat the question. Is there a safe way to navigate social media in the context of security, or do they go hand in hand? That's a big one. It does go hand in hand. I don't think it's security as much as privacy. So I think there's a distinction between the two. Security is, I'm kind of like defining it on the fly. Is like there's some adversarial involved trying to take advantage of the situation. Whereas privacy is just people knowing information about you that you may or may not want people to know about. So I think a lot of these social medias actually, they do a good job of having privacy filters who you share with and things like that. And so usually like you could be very, very careful about what you put out there. So again, in terms of do you upload this picture or not, that's literally your choice. They're not uploading the picture automatically for you. Unless they are these days, which I'm not aware of. Yeah, so you have to, once you take a picture, then you have to choose to upload a specific site or video and whatnot. So you're in control of that. Whether you're in control of what you see from others, that I don't think you really have control of, because again, it's these algorithms that are just feeding you information. So that's slightly out of your control. In terms of security, I don't think it's social media specific. I think it's just generally your presence on the web or digital age right now. Security is just an important thing that it does go hand in hand with the internet and globalization and stuff like that. So I don't think social media per se is the problem on security front, but it's interesting because as opposed to a lot of information which you're being fed and you're consuming, social media, you're basically offering free information for these companies to do whatever they want with it. So when you upload a picture, when you like a post, when you comment on a post, or what you see, and you basically have your profile online, you're in control of that to a certain extent, but you should just be careful. So I guess it's just in general. There are different things I do. I actually don't know if they're effective, but I do kind of. I limit my. I try to browse like without being logged into my Gmail, for example, for YouTube and things. I try to reset my advertiser's ID every couple of weeks. The idea basically is that whatever person they have configured based on my watch history and stuff, that kind of resets. I don't know if it actually makes a difference, but it makes me feel happy, at least in kind of resetting who Abdurrahman is, at least in the social media world. But yeah. Another thing you could do, but again, this is, maybe this is a bit further, it's not necessary. Having your own personal website is something that you can do to kind of decide, you could basically market yourself and decide how you're viewed by the outside world. So one of the reasons I don't like social media for myself is that, what if I interview one day and someone finds a video of when I was in high school and we were in the playground and, I don't know, we were spinning that guy way too fast on the thing and he flew off the edge or whatever. And I was the one videotaping or like commenting. Yeah, I don't want them to find that. And so for me, it's much more forward thinking in terms of I don't want to upload it for that reason too. So yeah. So I don't know if I actually answered the question, but hopefully in the ballpark.
Okay. Given your background in terms of you mentioned in the beginning that you lived in a time where there was GPS, there was a physical GPS, and not everything was on the phone.
Yeah.
And so now as technology progresses, and you also have the inside look as a computer science expert and stuff, how do you think it sort of shaped society, like given what you've seen through your experience? And also like in an Islamic sense as well, additionally, like how has this really impacted people in general?
Very loaded question, very good question. So I'll answer the first one first in terms of how this has shaped society. I think I'm going to go back to Islam as a religion of moderation, and there's a lot of things that are halal that we can do. You just don't want to overdo them, again, being moderate. And of course, there's the haram, which you avoid altogether. The interesting thing about the internet and globalization and social media is that I think it made a lot of the stuff that is haram more normalized, which is not good. And that's something that we really have to be careful with. And basically, if someone does a sin and it becomes public, then it becomes much easier for the next person to do it, the next person to do it. That's very, very wrong. In terms of how it's also shaping society, because of these algorithms that basically feed you what you want more and more, it also pushes people towards their ideologies more and more. So you have much more extremism in thought. And we're not talking extremism in the bad sense of the word. More so, like if someone is more conservative, they'll just be fed more and more conservative stuff that they just get pushed more and more on the conservative side. Someone's more liberal, they get pushed more and more on the liberal side. So that median is actually just very few people are actually right there in the middle. Everyone's getting pushed left and right. Excuse me. And that happens across history. Like there's always the media is kind of influencing this. But I think it's happening very, very quickly, way too fast these days because we have information at our fingertips. So rather than something taking 20 or 30 years to kind of settle and ruminate, it takes 3 or 4 days for something to settle and ruminate. And ideologically, and that's very, very scary. And I don't think that's stopping anytime soon. So one other topic that's big in the research world right now is computer ethics and about these algorithms in terms of especially things like artificial intelligence, how are they, how does a AI agent decide what you're going to watch next, and is that kind of ethical or not? And that's a very big and hard question because the data out there itself is already biased, and it's biased again in one of these directions, and it's just going to push you towards that because the way these things are trained and prepared, it uses old data to predict new data. So unfortunately, I don't see this going away anytime soon, but I think it's good to be aware of the situation. And that's kind of why I started off by the whole, let's take a look back at seeing how social media kind of exists and how it kind of gives you information. And when you understand how the content is coming from the other side, maybe it opens up your eyes in terms of, I don't want to be manipulated. I want to be my own person. How do I do that? Well, you have control over it. You have control over your own lives. And you'll be asked about this on the day of judgment. How did you deal with this? So it's not an easy question, but hopefully we discussed some tips and tricks to work towards that. And also remember that we didn't talk about this here, I guess just because of the age. But inshallah, when you guys are older and if you have children, it's also important to think about the next generations in terms of what they're going to face via what you faced during your years. So again, I kind of experienced the internet during my high school years. You guys have it more or less at your fingertips from elementary school. And that's very different than people who are going to have it when they're born, basically. Who knows what happens. No one's quantified how that can be used yet. But I guess we're waiting to see what will happen. So yes, so these breaches happen. Your information is out there. I mean, there's the immediate malicious person who will just take over your account and start posting things that's not you, but it could manipulate things. So yeah, I guess it's always good to have good security practices, good passwords, strong passwords, things like that, resetting passwords every once in a while. But yeah, I think more of it right now is speculative, both in terms of if another country has one country has another country's data on its citizens, what can it do with it? A lot of that is speculative. I don't know if it's in our immediate hands to do this, to look into what's going on. But a lot of researchers are looking into and trying to make things more secure and things like that. So yeah, so I guess I think in terms of how bad things could go, I just think big in terms of political players and things like that would be the idea. But yeah.
Alrighty. Any last questions? Alright, inshallah. Hamda, great talk, and I really enjoyed the inside look that you gave, given your background. And I think the main takeaway from this is that it's all about yourself. It's all about self-control. Like Dr. Abdurrahman, he gave you like reasons why, from a security perspective, a privacy perspective. And for some people, that might work. For some people, it could be, how you spend your time. Do you feel guilty about spending it, wasting it, or would you rather use it for something more productive? And I also really love the point that you mentioned that it's inevitable. We're going to use social media, but why not use it for something good? And I remember another computer science major. He graduated from UW very recently, University of Washington in Seattle. And he actually started a website making Quran, coding Quran, from the many different scripts. And so that's just one example of how you could utilize technology for the benefit. So Jazakallah khair, everybody. And Jazakallah khair, Dr. Abdurrahman, for the wonderful talk. Inshallah, we will close. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. And Hanan has a quick announcement.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Abdurrahman. Thank you, Mubashir, for moderating. Inshallah, our next lecture will be 3:45 in this room with Chaplain Sakina, Dean versus Dunya, Finding Your Balance. She's an amazing chaplain, so please make sure you're here at 3:45. And note the changes on our website. We are 30 minutes later behind schedule. So take the break that you need. Inshallah, we'll see you here. And also, don't forget to scan the QR code on your way out if you want a speaker or a tote bag. We do have a raffle for this lecture, inshallah. Oh, and last thing is sign up for Youth Got Talent. Sign up for Youth Got Talent and Art Gallery. The link is in our bio and on our website. All right, see you guys at 3:45.
I'm going to nap.
Damn, bro. I'm sleepy, bro. I'm sleepy, dog.
Tidur. Tidur di mana? Di kamar. Mau tidur. Of course, my brother.
We sleeping together?
Hey.
Man, we out. We're cousins, boy. You can do that. We're cousins. Huh? Cousins.
Yeah. For 4 or 5 hours, bro. No.
Exactly. And so that root of trust is the next question. I do have LinkedIn, yes. Yeah, please do. Yeah, if you just search my name, you should. I should have totally mentioned LinkedIn. See, I don't consider it a social network because exactly. So it's hard to call it a. You go to NYU? Oh, yeah. That's me. Yep. You can't add me? I don't think I would bother you. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, yeah, good luck with everything, inshallah. For the rest of today, inshallah. I'm going to be traveling to Chicago. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, inshallah. So, yeah. Jazakallah khair, thank you so much. It was a great meeting too, inshallah.
Great meeting you as well.
So I guess I'm supposed to be someplace next, so I guess I'll...
Oh, that's just down the hall. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Jazakallah khair.